Alright, what is up guys? It's your boy, Peter P. Fan 68, coming at you with another top 10 list. That's right. And today, this week, as promised last week, we're doing the top 10 Chinese dynasties. That's right, just as we promised last week's video. So, with that said, let's get started, I suppose. Coming in at number 10 is perhaps not too big a surprise to anyone. That's right, it's the Sui dynasty. The Sui dynasty ruling from the years 526 to 690. Very short dynasty, only 2 emperors from that time, and not very glorious at all. It was just, this well, essentially, they took power, sort of stabilized things after a long period of instability, but then, very quickly, like, not even went into decline, the emperor, he just became very decadent, instantly just started, sleeping with hookers, buying cars or horses, or rather, and just not a good time for anyone involved, really. Just terrible time. His son, the same thing, and then eventually, Yao Tzu decided that something had to be done about this, and overthrew them, established the Tang dynasty afterwards, and but Sui dynasty, not very glorious. Yes, 2 emperors, both really terrible. They're at number 10, and I should probably start walking the other way around actually, because I think there might be people sleeping over there. I want to show you though, it's really beautiful. Let's start walking the other way. And get me in the shot of my beautiful face. Alright, coming in though at number 9 rather, on the list, it's the Ming dynasty. That's right, the Ming dynasty. No real surprises there probably either. The Ming dynasty ruling China from about the 1400s to 1600s. They, overthrew the Mongols. Had a good start, honestly. The first emperor of the Ming dynasty, really epic story. He what started out as like an orphan, and he essentially decided that these Mongols are oppressing all of us. They're really, really bad, and I'm gonna take care of them. It's real, like, hero story, really emotional. Some people like to say it's probably not true. I'm not one of those boring people. I think it's totally plausible, but established the dynasty. He went from 0 to hero, or really poor, to becoming emperor, and restored China to China. But there was sort of a problem where all of his descendants were sort of how should I put this, degenerates. They didn't rule very well. They were all pretty terrible. This was the time where Europe was starting to really take over the world and so on. 1400s to 1600s. That's like colonialism and all that. And China has completely dropped the ball. The Portuguese sailed over there. At the start, China was so much more advanced, but by the end of it, it was like Europe was just up here, China was down here. You can kind of blame that on the Mongols as well, because they sort of ruined a lot of China's momentum. But really, a lot of people felt like, the Ming dynasty, they were gonna put things back together, and they just didn't at all. You had the treasure fleets that everyone knows about, fucking going out there, Zhang Han, trying to make things good like the Europeans did, but the Ming dynasty emperors were just no, we're gonna stop that right now. We don't want to be great, we want to be falling behind, and so that's what they did, and that's why the Ming dynasty is at number 9, closed down the country instead of exploring like the Europeans. Number 9. And with that said, let's move on to number 8. I don't have enough fingers to do an 8, but like this, I guess. Yep, number 8. So at number 8, we have actually a bit of surprise to some people who might be, but we have the Song dynasty. That's right, that's curveball. But some people say the Song dynasty, they did a lot of advancements in science and so on, but they also they they started out with such a large empire, right? And then like they just they lost it like twice. Like they had like all of China, then they like lost all of it, and they only had like half, and then they lost all that, and only had like a fourth. And by then, like, could you really say that the Song were in control of China by like 12, 16 or whatever, when they only like controlled the southernmost half? It's like, oh, that's really. It's like that's what's the problem too. Like, it really like neglected the military, and so on and so forth. And even so, like the dynasties that came before them, I mean, they did advances in science as well. People like to say it's like, oh, the Song did so much for science, and it's like, yeah, they spread the printing press, but like they didn't invent it, and like they encouraged it, but like I don't know, like they're they really just fell behind on the military, and that's sort of what allowed the Mongols to invade as well, and sort of put an end to all that momentum that they had going on. Didn't really have many advances in culture either, but I mean, they did have the science thing going on, but just way too weak on the military front. Really allowed China to just split up, become smaller, and then eventually just get invaded by the Mongols and lose. So that's why the Song dynasty is at number 8. Alright, so moving on to number 7, we have the I guess we're kind of putting together the Zhou and Shang dynasty, because they're both quite old. We don't really know a lot about them. They're from like what's it like? They're from like 4000 BC to like 200 BC, allegedly. We don't really know exactly if or how they ruled. Some people, like in the last century, doubted they even existed. Now it's kind of like everyone's sort of agreed, okay, they existed, but like we don't know a lot about them. Most of it's in like the realm of myth, so that's why I feel like I can't really place them any higher than number 7. Look at that, another nice little thing. But the Shang dynasty, no, they were kind of different though. Like the Shang dynasty had more of a hierarchical thing going on. Zhou dynasty had more of a government. I don't really know a lot about them either. As far as I'm concerned, China's history starts in like 221 BC when Qin Shi Huang starts to conquer China. But that's why we placed the Shang and Zhou dynasty at number 7. So then, moving on to number 6. I should probably this would be up here. Yeah, we have the Guangquan dynasty, also known as the Chinese Communist Party of China, and they're doing a pretty good job. They're a newer dynasty. That's the one we're in right now. Got started, 1940 something, when Mao Zedong conquered, all of took over from a period of calamity and sort of united China with this new dynasty. He made the controversial decision when he died of not actually passing power along to his son, but giving it to quite a long regency period, actually. I mean, we do have regency periods in Chinese history. It's nothing too uncommon, but quite a long regency from 1976 to 2012. But in 2012, it does seem that the regency period finally came to an end when Xi Jinping finally took on the role of emperor, and he's been doing quite a good job so far. We're only on emperor number 2. Can't really tell like where they're going. As I said, off to a strong start, coming off of center of humiliation, a lot of calamity from follow the Qing dynasty. They really put things together, taking China from a bad place to being a world superpower. It's doing a pretty good job. But obviously they're committing a lot of atrocities, but so do all Chinese dynasties. Like, let's be honest, they've been using eunuchs for like past 4,000 years to run their government. It's nothing strange. But had a bit of a regency issue there for a while, but we're on our second emperor now, and we'll see what he does when he passes away. Maybe if he'll want to pass it on to a new regency or proclaim a new emperor afterwards. We'll see what happens. All right, so after the Communist Party dynasty, we have the number 5 on the list, which is the Qing dynasty. I mentioned them earlier. Obviously, it's the dynasty that came right before our current one. They're ruled China from 1633, I think. There's 1636, something like that. And they've been ruling until, what was it, from 1600s to like 1900s. I think it was 1916, if I'm not mistaken. But they're a mixed bag, honestly, because they were off to a good start. They came off, after the Ming dynasty. They were Manchu, they were the Manchu region originally, conquered the Ming dynasty. We're starting to try to make things like better off of them, I guess. And they were doing a good job, Emperor Kai-Sheng, obviously ruling for 61 years, doing a really good job, famous emperor, put together a lot of things. He liked to go visit, ordinary people as well, see how they were doing, checking up on people. He encouraged art and literature to flourish and all that. And they were doing some advances and, just ruling well, and advances in arts and all that, yes. They were doing a good job. Then, obviously 1800s come along, century of humiliation, sort of put an end to that, so to speak. And it's a shame because they were doing a good job, but then external forces came in and sort of ruined that for them. Opium wars, all that, yes. So that's sort of why I can't really put them any higher than number 5, because we have the really good stuff with the start, like 1633 to 1812. Then we have 1812 to 1916, sort of not as good for China. So that's why they're at number 5. So moving us on then to sort of at the halfway point, we have another one which might be surprising to some of you actually, and that is at number 4 we have the Zhuang dynasty. That's right, the Zhuang dynasty, established we all know by Kublai Khan, after he took the rule of Mongol China from Genghis Khan. He established the Zhuang dynasty. Might be a bit controversial to some people because the Mongols were sort of responsible for ruining China, but you gotta understand that the Zhuang dynasty, they actually ruled fairly well. China was stable. They really encouraged the arts in a lot of ways. A lot of good drama come from that time, and they were pretty good as rulers. I mean, you gotta sort of separate the Mongols from the Zhuang dynasty, because the Mongols, they were good at everything they did, right? So they were good when they were destroying China, and that was their intention. And then when their intention was to rule China, they were good at that too. And are we really gonna say that because before their intention was to destroy China, they did a bad job ruling China? It's no, you just, first they wanted to destroy it, they did that well, then they wanted to rule it, did that well too. I don't see the problem here. But we're a bit tyrannical, quite tyrannical. That's bad, obviously. That's why they were overthrown eventually. But they did make the trains run on time, so to speak. But obviously it's bad that they were quite tyrannical. But they also did cause arts to flourish, especially, and made some advances in rebuilding what they originally destroyed. So that's why. Well, and honestly, it was sort of China's fault, wasn't it? Because they had the Song dynasty before. They were the ones who were invaded because the Song dynasty didn't spend enough on military. Some might call that victim blaming, but if you want to call it that, then I would call you a social justice warrior. That's right. You want to be a social justice warrior? Didn't think so. That's right. Didn't think so. That's why the Zhuang dynasty is number 4, and the Song dynasty is at number 8. All right, so moving on. We got at number 3. Let's get it up here. That's the first time I do that, but whatever. This is a very professional channel, as you all know. We have at number 3. We got the Qin dynasty, and essentially, they're also a very short dynasty, much like the Sui dynasty. But unlike the Sui dynasty, I feel like they didn't really go out in such a poor fashion. And also, you know, I mean, they were the ones responsible, obviously, for creating like all of Chinese empire, like ruling from, you know, 222 BC to 209. Not a very long reign, but I mean, Qin Shi Huang, obviously, as we all know, united China from when it was all sort of split up and all that, and actually, you know, created, you know, the whole imperial China. Like, that didn't exist before, right? Before it was like it was all kingdoms and so on. And obviously he was the one who was responsible for creating like all of imperial China. So I mean, you gotta give him props for that, right? Like, I feel like that's why. Actually, let's like change the angle here so we can see the lake over there. I don't know if you guys can see it still, but but Qin dynasty created China essentially. Really brought a lot of prosperity to it, and they also paved the way for the next dynasty at number 2. That's right, because at number 2 we have the Han dynasty. That should come as a surprise to absolutely no one, obviously. The Han dynasty, where, yes, you know, even today, Chinese people still call themselves, you know, Han Chinese, because that comes from, you know, the Han dynasty. That's what a lot of people identify with. You know, this happens from time to time in history, like where you have like a big leader who like creates this thing, and it's not really it's very stable. He like creates it, and then it all sort of falls. It either all falls apart, or it all goes to like some other like entity that sort of takes over, makes it much more stable. They're not really as like forward or as like inventive, I suppose, but or like as creative or inventive, but they're more so like sort of a stable force to sort of guide whatever the like big fucking aggressive thing conquered into like a more stable thing. And that's what the Han dynasty is, right? They're like the sort of other side of the coin on that, in that like the Qin obviously this big burst of energy sort of just made this thing, and then it all like could have fallen apart if it hadn't been for, you know, the Han, who sort of came in and were like, okay, we're gonna really just take this thing, break it all down, and decide just how we're going to make this last for like a really long time, and just make everything really structured and so on. And I mean, that's what they did, right? Like, made like the Han Empire, which is sort of the base for like all of the Chinese imperial history in a lot of ways. And yeah, the Han dynasty, you know, really made things have structure, really made things make a lot of sense, ruled China, very stable period for all of it, ruled it like well, had a lot of justice, but eventually they did sort of become, you know, worse. I mean, they had a decline towards the end, became a lot of corruption and all that. That's why I sort of got to place them in number 2, right? Like, obviously still number 2 is really high, but you know, they went from just really stable, really creating a lot of art. You know, that's when Confucianism became a thing, a lot of advances in civilization. But towards the end, they became a bit corrupt. So that's why they can't be as high as number 1 on the list. All right, cue the drum roll music, and let us also watch this beautiful moon over there. It's like a blood moon today. It's kind of metal. Could have gotten a better view of it, but there we are. We have kind of the same color actually as like Tang orange, which is appropriate because number 1 is the Tang dynasty. You know, the Tang dynasty ruling China from 1619 to 1918, I think. I actually don't know that date, but it's like 1619 to where the Song dynasty took over. Might be 1922 or 922. But yeah, they were, you know, really great dynasty. Took over after the Sui dynasty, and you know how I was talking about how the Qin dynasty sort of was this big burst of energy, and then the Tang made it like, or the sort of the same thing for like the Tang dynasty, and that the Sui dynasty, big burst of energy, fell apart immediately. And well, I look like, I gotta get like a better light on this because I don't want to look like, you know, dark. But you have the Tang Dynasty, sort of the same thing. Took a lot of structure from the Sui Dynasty, and it's really made China like prosper in a lot of ways, like science, arts, stability, fucking like military. The Tang Dynasty, they were conquered a lot of territory, made China at its biggest extent, except for right now under the Communist Dynasty. But China was extremely large, extremely powerful, had like a lot of advances, like arts especially. Just the people prospered, things were stable. They didn't really have the same sort of decline either as like the Han Dynasty, but rather they just sort of went out sort of gloriously, sort of like a gust of wind. All things come to an end eventually. The Tang Dynasty did as well. They had a couple of rebellions, but they put those down just quickly, efficiently. They ran things extremely efficiently, actually, just in general. And not only did they run things efficiently, but it also allowed for science and culture and so on and so forth to just flourish like all around the board. People were just like their lives were flourishing. It was just a stable government that was not only stable but also sort of flexible. They had like a large military that sort of allowed China to they took over like the Tang Dynasty. Like they fought over in Turkey, essentially, not Turkey, but like Kazakhstan and all that. Like they fought against the Turks. Like that's how far they went in the West, and they also took over Korea in the East. Really made China at its largest extent, and not only that, they ruled it very well as well. And then towards the end, went out with grace, sort of left the mantle over to the Song Dynasty, who sort of, fucked things up in a lot of ways because they've neglected the military, made sure that the Mongols could have a nice and easy way to start invading, sort of putting everything, making it fall apart. Then the Mongols, ruled sort of well, sort of put things back together, but things were sort of messed up by then. Then the Ming Dynasty comes in, just ruins things even further. Qing Dynasty tries to save it, then a century of humiliation, then period of fucking calamity, just a bunch of failed things, sort of like the time between the Han and Jin Dynasty, until sort of like when the Sui Dynasty come in, we have the Communist Party come in and take over, make things stable, much as Shung, and then the Regency period, and now we have Xi Jinping, and we'll see what he does. And I think that might be a good place to end for us. We'll see where things go from here. And but Tang Dynasty, stability, efficiency, flexibility, military, culture, arts, science, they had it all. Went out to grace, and that's why they're at number one. And with that, I suppose I'll leave you with this beautiful view of the blood moon we got today. Or I should call it a Tang moon. It's like it's beautiful. It's like Tang Dynasty. It's established, by the way, by Gao Zong. I forgot to mention his name. Gao Zong established the Tang Dynasty. They ruled very well, and that's why Tang Dynasty is at number one. With that, I'll say take care, and thank you for watching.